G'day and welcome to Kenty Blitz, your daily hit of NRL news. Kenty tomorrow, big decision with the NRL making a call on Vegas. Looks like Saints, Dogs, Knights and the Cowboys are the early chance.
Yeah, it looks like it's going that way. Look, no surprises there. It's been sort of thrown around a while. There's been a few clubs that have put their hands up. Look, I'm not excited by it, to be honest.
Yeah, right.
Look, I think, I tend to think, given it's such a big deal and it's turned into such an event, I think we've got to stop being a socialist organisation, and rather than just share it out and everyone gets a free trip to Vegas, I think they just need to say, you know what, let's pick the teams that put on the best footy and send them over there. One, to try and get some breakthrough into that American audience, but two, it's the way we launch the season, and to just start sending teams that, like the Dragons. Look, they can't beat time at the moment, the poor buggers. You know what I mean? Like, they're struggling a bit. Like, I feel sorry for the Dragons. A couple of times already this year, they've outscored the opponent as far as tries go, yet still lost the game.
They missed the kicking.
And it just shows where they're at as a side. Now, to send them down as a centrepiece for next year, I'm not excited about that.
I think the NRL would say, okay, well, the Dogs and the Dragons are one of the biggest, or two of the biggest supported clubs.
Yeah, but are they travelling supporters? That's the other part you got to ask, and I'm not sure that they are. Look, certainly the Bulldogs put on a big show down in Canberra, but a big difference too between driving down the highway to Canberra and getting on a plane to fly to Las Vegas. I just tend to think we should just be picking the big super clubs and the teams that are certainly sitting in the 8, and I would say solidly in the 8.
Having been to Vegas 2 years in a row now, I think what's important is the different fans come each year, and I doubt if you had the same teams there each year, whether those fans would travel. I think the fact that, those teams haven't been before, they'll travel. Fair
call, because, fans do wait for that. So I kind of get the argument there. I just think from a footy point of view, I'd rather see, look, even the Knights aren't playing real inspired football at the moment. And I look for the life of me, I hope it's not Knights versus Saints over there.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean?
No, I think it's Saints Dogs.
Yeah, and the other thing is the Gillaroos are probably going to get pumped as well, so they won't be over there. Which is probably the right decision, even though that's going to upset people.
Yeah, maybe they might play State of Origin 1 over there for the women.
No, they won't play any.
Okay. If you look at 3 of the top 5 teams this year, they all travel to Vegas. So maybe teams are starting to work that out. There was that hangover effect the first year. Maybe,
Yeah, could be.
Cronulla, Canberra, Warriors. Only the Panthers are the ones who are struggling.
Panthers, it was the last team you'd expect there, isn't it? It could also be too because they were playing a week early. I don't know whether they got stuck in their preparation a little bit earlier and just who knows. But I tell you what, they've put the sort of and you look at Cronulla, how much travel they've been doing. They're still playing so well. So they're finally back at home this weekend. So look out there.
Very good. We'll be running a tour there too. So just look out for that, mate. Speaking of a couple of top teams, that obviously the Warriors and the Dogs, have been outliners in this competition. Dogs have only lost once, and the Warriors have won 7 of their last 8.
Yeah, look, it's what's old is new again. Look, the one eternal truth in rugby league is defence wins games, okay? And we all say that, and we all think we know that. And in this modern game where you can be behind by 20 points, as we saw on the weekend, where 2 teams came from 20-0 down.
Unbelievable.
We tend to focus on attack and all the rest of it. But the Bulldogs and the Warriors are the 2 teams with the best defence in the competition. They're the hardest teams to break defensively. And their success is built on the back of that. You can say what you like about how they're attacking, and they do have some pretty good attacking moments. But the fact that they're both performing so well is built on their defence. And I think it's something it's easy to lose track of defence, but all competitions are built on defence.
Yeah, I mean, just on that, I can't believe Stephen Crichton's form at the moment. It is phenomenal.
Magnificent. Yeah.
The way he showed that ball on the weekend was just...
Yeah, look, Cameron Serrato knew what he was getting when he got him, okay? He coached him as a junior footballer. He knew what he was going to bring in, and he knew that what he was going to bring to the Bulldogs was far beyond just his own talents. and the amazing thing is his own talents are still developing. He's still learning and getting better as a player. I tell you what, he's on the road to being something very special, Stephen Crichton. He is going to be a player I think will become one of those generational type players. We look at the big centres, Inglis, Meninga, all those sorts of guys. Yeah, Crichton's got to be along those sorts of guys. I think the way he's going, the way he's tracking. And he's carrying the Bulldogs on his back. They spoke about that on the weekend. But more than just his performance on the weekend, his influence throughout the club is massive.
He's an alpha dog, right? Absolutely.
He is, and Serraldo knew he was getting that. And I think the Bulldogs were pleasantly surprised when he got there and he emerged as that sort of figure, because all the players there thought, you know what, this is a guy we can follow, and they're showing that.
Yeah, the form of the Bulldogs and the Warriors kind of begs the question if Ivan Cleary is the new bellyache in terms of finding assistant coaches.
Well, look, it's funny. The game's littered with coaches whose influence bleeds through the guys who have worked through them as assistants. You can go all the way back to Jack Gibson, Warren Ryan. That's where it really, I think, the modern template began. But one thing that's not in dispute is Ivan's ability to spot talent in coaching. He went to West Tigers. Andrew Webster was a lower grade coach at West Tigers who had big reputation at the time. Yeah, okay. But once he worked with Ivan was able to identify how good he was. And then when Ivan returned to Penrith, he took Andrew Webster with him. And he also made sure he got Cameron Serraldo there to coach with him and progressed him through the grades at the Panthers, so he became his defensive coach essentially. And the one thing I think all three of them share is you look at Penrith the last 4 years now, even 5 years now, how good defensively they have been. My understanding is a lot of that is a blueprint of Cameron Serraldo and what he put into place. Webster obviously saw what Serraldo was doing, and he sort of, I don't know how closely they mimicked that at the Warriors, but certainly part of that's has been adopted. And the Bulldogs are the best defensive team in the competition at the moment. They're controlling games with their defence, and that's why they're so hard to beat. That's why they're leading the competition. So, Ivan's going to have a factory line of players, of coaches coming through after him. Like they are just so good at developing talent, recognising talent, and then developing it. And
you mentioned last week about Jason Taylor being the assistant coach there.
Serraldo,
and then also you mentioned about him potentially going to over the Bears. I mean, that doesn't look like an option now, but if you're the Bears, you're looking at kind of that bloodline and you're thinking maybe Jason Taylor's a good option, right?
Well, yeah, I think so. Look, that's certainly going to come into the conversation, I think. But to be fair, I don't think the Bears are really going that way. That's something that's been proposed by internally from the current Bears setup. I don't think the NRL as an owner now of the Bears, the Perth Bears, are looking that way. Has come out recently. They looked at Meninga,
right.
And I think it's an interesting decision anyway. Mal's never really been proven as a club coach.
Can he do the day-to-day, do you think?
Look, I don't know, to be honest. Look, the one thing that Mal is very good at is very good as that figurehead. When he got to the Queensland coach, it was I wouldn't, he wasn't. I think their first choice. And the interesting thing about Mal, that first season he coached Queensland, he actually quit after they lost the first game. He'd had enough, and he took his resignation into Tosser Turner, who just put it in the top drawer and said, mate, you don't quit halfway through a series. Yeah, wow. Let's leave it there. Now, Queensland then won game 2 and 3, and then out of that went on that unbelievable 8-year winning streak. But that's a little known secret that Mal actually quit then. And what Mal did is he figured out, this is how smart Mal is, he figured out throughout that he was able, he's not the X's and O's type of coach. He's not that guy that can sit down and figure out a game plan. This is how we're going to beat them and all the rest of it, which most head coaches are. But what he was able to do is he's a great leader, one of the best leaders you will have. And he was able to recognise that. He had that ego strength to admit that to himself. Then went out and got coaches in Initially, it was Neil Henry. Then after that was Michael Hagan. Guys who had been NRL head coaches who came in, helped him pick the side. He listened a lot to obviously Cameron Smith and the likes throughout that as well, the playing group. But he also had coaches there who could advise him on his shortcomings as to, we need to do this now, we need to do that. And he found a way to make it work. And I think if he goes to the Perth Bears, I think it'll be a similar strategy. I think he'll go there with try and get really good assistant coaches in, and they will do a lot of the coaching, but he will be the figurehead. And that's something that is adopted around the world. Alex Ferguson was a lot like that when he was at Manchester United. So it's not an unusual thing. It's slightly unusual in rugby league, but it's not really that unusual. And Mel would be put in there, and I found it fascinating that this has leaked and come out, because it just shows that the NRL already have got their fingerprints all over the Perth Bears and are trying to influence things. Like Mel's the current Australian coach, but the fact that they're probably positioning him now to get in to be the Perth coach, I think says more about them trying to win the propaganda war over there than actually trying to have that team that's going to be, of course they want it to be successful, and there's no reason why Mal couldn't be. But I think, the priorities are much closer together than if they just got a guy out there who's a pure coach.
Do you think Brad Arthur and Sam Burgess, that they want to be head coaches, right? They don't want to be assistant coaches to Mal?
Look, yes, they do. You're right. Okay. Whether you could put that to them a deal of come in, let Mal run it for a few years, and then you guys take over.
A bit like the Dolphins.
The Wayne Bennett model. I don't think that'll work, to be fair. I think if Mal goes over there and has success, I think Mal might want to stay there.
Yeah, well.
That's the first thing. I don't think he'd want to leave after 2 or 3 years if he was having success. And secondly, I don't see either of those guys who are currently head coaches in the English Super League to really want to be taking that role again. Having maybe Sam, given the fact that he's never been a head coach in the NRL, I don't think Brad Arthur would take that job. I think he would rather wait and get a head coaching job at some other club that comes up, whether that be one of the clubs that are in trouble now. So I don't know where that's going to go, but we have to wait. The fact that Mel's interested in it just fascinates me. Yeah.
Kenny, wasn't Mal on the Papua New Guinea payroll at some stage? How does that make the 19th team feel?
Well, I don't know. That's an interesting part. That hasn't been brought up. Mal, for years, was a consultant for the Papua New Guinea Rugby League. So he's been on their payroll. He's helped them get things together. He wasn't part of the bid process. He was part of things before that. So, but he was an advisor over there, ran a lot of the development over there, all the rest of it. So you would have thought that Mal had some affinity with Papua New Guinea, and if he's looking to become a head coach with either of these new teams, that would be the way he would go. That's why I think this has been driven by the NRL and not the clubs themselves. I think that the NRL are looking for somebody who could go to Perth and have a sizable command of the media over there, have a sizable personality, impact.
Maybe someone they trust.
Yeah, certainly
got close affiliations with the Kangaroos.
Certainly that, but just someone over there who's a big figure, in the game. When Kevin Sheedy came to Sydney as the coach of the GWS Giants, he was put there more for promotional reasons than he was for his actual pure coaching, and he had an enormous impact on that. He had He made the club well known. I remember sitting in a green room with Kevin Sheedy one day before we appeared on a television show, and we just sat there. And he's a fascinating character, but his reality and his understanding of what his job was at the Giants was undisputed. He knew that he was there primarily to sell the franchise to the Sydney audience first, and then results second. Okay, now clearly they want results, but that's where they went. So I think this would be a similar strategy. Getting Mal in Perth would be a similar strategy from the NRL to take on AFL over there.
Yeah, okay. Mate, Origin teams get picked after this weekend. Did you see that last night on 100% Footy? Mitchell Moses coming out and saying he'd like to play with
Nathan Cleary, yeah.
What do you think about that?
Well, I think it's a smart thing for Mitch to say, because I think that they're going to pick Nathan Cleary as the number 7, even though Mitchell was so dominant last year in the series, and he was New South Wales' best player last year in the series, and certainly when they needed to be. That obviously that game where they put it away, that I think it was 24-0 at half time or whatever it was. He was just everything he touched turned to gold in that game. Now, I think he realises he won't be the halfback in front of Cleary, despite how well he went last year. And so he's basically stating a case that he can also play 5'8". Cleary's a predominantly right-side player. That's the side that Mitch plays as well, but he says he can play left. He says he liked the idea of basically letting someone else be the chief playmaker, and he just calls it when he needs it, so to speak. I think it could work. I tend to think they're going to go Luai, though. I think they'll go Luai at 5'8".
Because of the club connection previously, and they've grown up together, I
club
guess.
Connection. It's just it's the safest decision. It's not a bad decision either. Okay, let's state that. It's not a bad decision. Luai has been very good when he's played Origin. But it's just they've played together at club before. They've played at Origin together before. Luai's played at Origin, so he's not a risk at that level. And I just think it's a safe way to go. And I think Mitch Moses misses out. I don't think he can nab a bench position, despite the talk around that. But I just think, I think they'll go that way. But if you're Mitch, I think that was a smart play to say that last night. I don't think he'll get it, but
fantastic football. Let's go through a few positions because is there anyone who can kind of play their way in or play their way out this weekend?
It's fascinating. I see Laurie Laurie Daly is sport for choice at the moment. Okay, whereas Billy Slater, he's kind of injuries sort of dictating a little bit for him as far as like he's lost Ben Hunt. Okay, so Ben Hunt, he had a decision to make there about what he did at 5'8". Daly Cherry Evans with a halfback. What did he do? Did he look at how did he handle that position? Now with Ben Hunt being injured, he comes off the bench. That makes it easy now for Cameron Munster to go in 5'8". Tom did now to go and play 14. Okay, so that clears that up for him. But Laurie's spoiled. Laurie's got he's got
just on Kevy though. What does he do at 9? What does he do at hooker?
Billy.
Sorry. What did I say, Kevy?
Sorry,
Billy. What does he do at 9? Because Harry Grant's been out for 4 weeks.
Yeah, Harry will be given every chance.
But Ben Hunt may have played hooker where he has before, but he can't play now, so he's kind of got no choice, right?
No, I think he'll look at Reid Marnie.
Okay.
I think Reid Marnie will come into the picture now, and he'll look at him. But I think Harry will be given every chance, and if Harry plays this weekend, which we're led to believe he's a chance. Whether he's named or not, whether he's named doesn't necessarily mean he will play. But I think Harry's a chance to get. If he gets through this game, he'll almost certainly still be picked. I think he's the kind of footballer he can come into an Origin game and still get the job done. But they will have to have someone like Dearden on the bench just to give him a breather.
Yeah, mate. Let's go through a few positions. Fullback. This is for New South Wales.
South Wales, yeah.
Edwards, Tedesco, Latrell,
yep.
Turbo,
yep.
And Pappenhausen, who is probably a roughie but had an unbelievable game on the weekend.
Well, he stated his case on the weekend, but I think they'll go with Edwards.
Okay.
I think that's where they'll stay. But it's fascinating they've got so many players, like 5 legitimate chances could play fullback for New South Wales.
Yeah.
That's a lot. That's been selfish, that.
Okay. Wing.
Wing's a bit of a problem for him at the moment. Well, Tyre's just come back. It wasn't great for Penrith on the weekend. Like, he probably needed the run. He didn't really have a great game, but you can understand that. He's been out for some time with a hamstring injury. But then Penrith got the bye this weekend, so that's a concern for Laurie as well, because it's not like he gets another round to get another game under his belt. So he's got to take him on trust what he did last week. Still might pick him. Okay. Lomax probably back this weekend as well.
Yeah, still got to pass a test on Wednesday, they're saying.
Yeah, still got to pass. So we don't know about Lomax, but he was so good last year for New South Wales. And then you've got, there's been talk I know Paul Gallen was talking about putting Tom Travojevic on the wing. I don't think they'll do that. I don't think they'll go that way. It's become such a specialist position, wing, these days. It's not as easy as it used to be to send a centre out onto the wing or a fullback onto the wing. I don't think any of the other fullbacks that'll be out will get on the wing. I think Jacob Carraz comes right into it because his form has been very good. He missed injury early in the season, but since he's come back, he's been terrific. And I know that Laurie Daly has been looking at him. He's been part of the conversation, certainly. So that's a situation there. That's probably the one area where New South Wales are a little bit light at the moment.
I mean, the other thing is do they put Crichton on the wing?
Well, that's a decision. Yeah, that's an option. Okay, you put Crichton on the wing. And then you put Latrell and Turbo in the centres, which they've done that, and they did a terrific job years back as the New South Wales centres. That said, I think Crichton's gone to another level now, and I just think he's wasted on the wing. I actually don't mind the idea of putting Crichton plays right side, Cleary plays right side. They used to be teammates at Penrith. Carraz used to be is a teammate now of Crichton, and is learning to play outside him. I think
their
that works.
understanding is phenomenal now.
Yeah.
2 weekends in a row, they've been unbelievable next to each other.
Yeah, and it's really working. So that's an option. So if you want combinations, you've got the halfback and the centre combination there, but then you've also got the centre and the wing combination there. So, and I think Crichton's just too good at the moment to not be considered in the centres. He'll almost be New South Wales captain.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
I think he'll be captain. Jason Saab on the wing?
Saab's in the conversation.
Carr, maybe?
Well, they're in I don't know about Addo Carr. I think Saab is probably a little bit ahead, but Saab's in the conversation. But that's the one area where Laurie's probably not spoiled for choice. But yeah, everywhere else you look, he's halves, he's spoiled. Fullback, he's spoiled. Props, well, he's got a stack of props there at saying, Terrell May, Payne Haas, Mitch Barnett, Spencer Leniu. Like, again, which way does he want to go? What sort of game does he want to play?
With Terrell May and Payne Haas, both players play big minutes. Yeah?
Yeah. I don't think that's a priority in Origin, though.
Okay. Can they afford to take a back in or not? I mean,
no,
I know it's a stupid idea.
I don't think so.
Down, but I'm just trying to.
Yeah, no, look, it's an idea. Look, Origin, sometimes when you think of the dumb ideas in Origin, the smart ideas. I remember years ago, Phil Gould picked a really small pack against that big monster Queensland pack that had the Dane Carlaw and Brad Thorne and all that. And everyone said, they're just going to get murdered here. And the strategy was, boys, it's going to be tough for 70 minutes. But at 70 minutes, they'll wilt.
Yeah, wow.
And that's how they won the game. They won the game in the last 10 minutes. And it was a discipline of just continuing to go through the middle and try to wear those players down. And they did that. So, sometimes it doesn't. You might be a bit crazy, given you've got big minutes in your starting forwards. You might be able to do that on your bench. I don't think they'll do that because I think they'll still try and play a bit of a power game because there's a lot of power through that New South Wales pack. So
I think Terrell May will be a bit disappointed with his game last week. Any team
that gets beat 64-0, that happened. And the worst thing for him, Paul Bugger, is the Storm just kept going through the middle. Neither winger scored a try for the Storm on the weekend because the ball didn't need to go that wide. They just kept going through the middle and they really put the sword to the Tigers. So yeah, that didn't help him. But I think May will probably just miss out. But we'll wait and see. It's they can shock you sometimes. These Origin coaches,
might be
what they do.
Man or something and go up and get
who
a
knows?
Taste of it.
I think he'll be in a squad somewhere,
mate. Laurie Daly's been accused over the years of being a bit soft.
Yeah.
In his previous go at New South Wales Origin coach. You think he's learned from that? Hopefully,
I know they've learned. I know he's learned from that. The thing about that, see, Laurie's a very good coach, but when you're coaching, and he'd never been an NRL coach, when you come in and you coach for the first time, it's very easy to have those little slight doubts. What do I do here? And everyone thinks they know, but when so much is at stake, do I pick this guy? Do I pick this guy? And just those positions we just talked about. Everybody's got pluses and minuses, and to varying degrees. Laurie made a mistake last time as Origin coach where he tried to be loyal as a coach, and when Blake Ferguson and Josh Dugan played up, what they did, went out drinking when they were told they weren't allowed, tried to stay loyal. You know what? We're going to stick together. We're going to circle the wagons. We're going to use this as energy. And he kept them in the squad. And I think in hindsight, I think he won't make that mistake again. And I think he'll be just a little bit more tougher with his calls as far as selections. And I think he understands, pick the team to win, and that's the team you've picked to win and stick with it. And but if players aren't fulfilling their end of it, well, that's now on them. It's not up to the coach to stay loyal to players who aren't returning that loyalty. And I think that's the bit that Laurie's adjusting to. And I think he'll be right there.
You know, Laurie was on chiming in a couple of weeks ago, and I know he's media trained now, and, you know, he's a lot different. I mean, he's been media trained his whole life, but now he's in the media.
Yeah.
But there was a calmness about him, which I thought, you know, he seemed to have worked it out. You know, I know that's dumbing it down, but you know what I mean? He's kind of...
Yeah, it is. But I tell you what, the pressure of Origin changes them. It is so tough. And nearly every coach, once they get into Origin, they react different ways. They all change somewhat. Some it's very clearly on the surface. Some it's very deep and down inside. And they all change. The trick is to, you know, I remember talking to a coach some time ago, and the trick is to figure out what you're about before you go in. Write it down. Have it there to look at, and just remind yourself of that when the pressure comes. So you don't start to drift. You don't start to second guess yourself. You don't start to say, you know, maybe we need to change this, or maybe I need to start doing that. And, you know, like Brad Fittler had them taking off their shoes and walking on grass, and everything was, you know, peace, love and mung beans. And by the end of it, it was just torn apart at the edges. The pressure got to him as well. And he was the most laid-back bloke in the world, so it gets to them all.
Kenty, a little bit of an interesting story in the world of journalism was a friend of the show, Michael Chamas, g'day Michael, was pulled from last night's show.
Yeah, 100% footy.
Yeah, 100% footy. What's the background with that?
Well, the idea is he's had a blue with Mitch Moses, and Moses refused to go on the show if he was on it. So Channel 9 management said pull him off the show and put Danny Wilder on instead. I don't know what the background is to this story. I think it was pretty disappointing from Channel 9 to do that. I think you got to believe in you. You know, I know Mitch Moses is a big star of the game and someone you want on the show. And you could argue that Chamas, as a journalist, you know, I know there's not a lot of respect for the journalists on those types of shows, but he, I thought of it. I think they blinked the Channel 9 management taking him off. But it's a funny one. I tell you what, look, everyone loves the blue in rugby league. You know what I mean? And that's, you write a story about blues, everybody wants to read it.
Give us your best one. Give us your best journo blue.
Oh, mate, I've had stacks of them. I've had stacks with every. Look, I had a situation in 360 once where, you know, I gave a coach a serve one day, and I thought I was right. I still think I'm right about that. And I don't want to get into it again, but he was coming on the show later in the week, and the next day they were like, the club's called, mate, he's not going to go on unless he gets an apology tonight. And I said, well, what was wrong about it? What I said, they said, well, nothing's wrong. It's just that they didn't appreciate that I called him on it. So they said, we've got to get an apology tonight or else he's not coming on tomorrow. And so we went to air that night, and when it got to the point where the apology was...
Let me guess. You didn't?
I gave him a serve again. I thought, because part of it is... I wasn't trying to be a smart ass, but I'm not. I don't like trying to be bullied to by coaches, and I get that. Yeah, they don't like journos, and we're interfering. And I know that job I own 360 pissed people off at different times, but I also think there's a commitment to the viewers as well to tell them the truth. Okay, and there's a lot of things that happen in rugby league that people don't want out. The clubs don't want out, or coaches don't want out, and that's fine. Okay, keep your secrets,
and there are a lot of stories that you don't tell.
Oh, it's a million I don't tell.
You tell me, and I'm like,
yeah, I know. Look, I'd like to write a version one day and put it all out there, but everybody's the same in rugby league. But it wasn't that bad. It just the coach. I'd already had a little bit of going with him, so he was just trying to, I think, get one over me, and I thought I'm not going to be stood over like that, so I did it again. And then the next day they came in and they said, mate, he's not coming on tonight. And I said, good, I'll go again. And, yeah, but anyway, look, that's by the by. Who cares, you know? But it happens a lot. I've had blues with most of them. You know what I mean? It's fun. Most of us grow up and get over it. Some of us, we enjoy continuing the dislike. I don't know what's going on between them. I do think it's healthier for everybody if you can get past it and move on. And we all tend to be able to move on. We have our blues and move on and have our ways. But they're good fun. You know what I mean? Like it's just rugby league is right now it is. I would say there's 17 warring nations, okay, and they have the same blues with each other. They just don't always become public. Journos, we just can't help talk about it.
Yeah, right.
But they're all warring with each other. They're all at different stages with warring with different sections of the media, depending on where their affinities lie. And then out of that, you just got this melting pot of just drama. And so that's what the game is. And look, if you're too sensitive, my advice to Mitch would have been, mate, go in there, be the bigger bloke, and just get over it. Just don't let him worry you. Sit there, answer his questions if you want. And I've said this to guys when I've done TV interviews. If you want to come and give me a serve, give me a serve. Right? If you don't like what I say, come on air, tell me why you don't like it, tell me what you don't like, and let me respond, and we'll do it there. Now, they don't want to turn that into television gold because that'd be just like mad clickbait for everybody.
I've seen Ivan Cleary came on once. Ivan Cleary came on.
Yeah, and we've been testing.
And questioned your article and went through it all.
Yeah,
It's available on YouTube. You can look it up.
Yeah, and that was a good example. If Ivan had the shits, we said, well, look, you're welcome to come on and talk about it. Like, I don't hide behind it. I'd never had a rule that you can't have a crack at me. Like, guys have come on, and I've said to them, if you want to have a crack, have a crack. Ivan, yeah, I'm going to have a crack. I said, fine, that's fine. Like, and kept it civil. We both kept it civil. We said our bit. Now, Ivan and I aren't particularly close. And to be fair, we didn't get through. We didn't really resolve anything out of that. But he was allowed to have his crack. Good luck to him. I wasn't upset at all by it. Like, I get it, mate. Like, sometimes two people, you look at, for example, Wayne Bennett and Phil Gould, okay? Two of the smartest brains in the game. They will have their opinion on the game. They don't always align. And in fact, most of the time they don't align, but they're often both right in their own way, depending on what you want to prioritise or depending on how much weight you want to put into certain aspects of it. So that sort of stuff happens. It just happens in the game. You cannot get into this game where people just don't all get on and it's all lovey-dovey and all the rest of it. The minute you do that, you're dead. The game is dead. The game is talked about because it is tribal. People have passionate opinions and people have varying opinions. So I would have said to Mitch, mate, go on, be the bigger bloke, answer the questions. If you want to have a crack at him, have a crack at him. Go for it. If you want to get him before the show, have a crack at him before the show. But don't hide from it. See, in the old days, I remember I wrote a story about Darren Tracy once. Absolutely cornered me in the St. George dressing room back in the day.
Scary guy too, right?
Yeah, look, it's not someone that you want to corner you. I can say that. But he had the shits because I wrote a story that he didn't think should have been out there. Now, the story, he didn't dispute the story. He just didn't
What was the
think.
story?
It was about him wanting to get out of the club.
Right.
Okay. And he'd spoken to people about getting out. Anyway, we had a blue about it. Move on, so be it. That just happens, mate. But back in those days, though, I actually went in the dressing room knowing he'd be there, knowing he was probably going to call me on it, which he did. And look, it was volatile enough that a few people around sort of looked over like, geez, what's going on there? But anyway, in the end, we said our bit, moved on, and that's it. And at the moment, there's not enough interaction, I think, between these clubs and journos, particularly, where you can just resolve those sorts of things. In the old days, you had to keep working with each other, and you say, I'm sick of fighting with you. Let's just get on.
Maybe we need to get them all out for the KENTY Blitz Christmas party.
Oh, mate, could you imagine that?
Get out on the cruise.
Listen, given my recent history, Byron, it's probably the last thing I need.
Very good. Well, listen, tomorrow we've got a very special guest coming on who'll be hosting the show, and we've got a hat to give away. There you go. I got a big head. So we're giving that away. Put your comments down below. The first comment that gets the right person, one comment per person. Don't put 100 people out. The first correct comment will send you the hat. Until tomorrow, it's a big one. See you then.